Welcome to a video where we'll see how to use Power Query inside Power BI Desktop to go from two fact tables into a proper star schema. Now, this is actually Excel Magic Trick 1498, but we're really not going to be using Excel proper, even though the data model is going to start in Excel. We're going to be using Power Query inside Power BI Desktop. Now, that said, whatever we do with Power Query in this video can also be done in Excel, Power Query, and Power Pivot. So everything we do here can be done either in Power BI Desktop or over in Excel. Now, the problem is we have two fact tables, and we have dimension tables, or Excel people think of these as lookup tables. These are what we use for the final reporting for filtering. And this model will not work. We have a filter that can work on this table, filters that can work on this table, and we have numbers at different granularities. So this model is not going to allow us to, in our final reporting, pull criteria from all of the tables. If we can transform this model into a proper star schema model where we have one fact table, all the numbers are at the same level or granularity, and we have many-to-one relationships to all of our dimension tables, then we can build whatever reports we want with the measures we want in our reports, and then use any of the conditions, criteria, or filters from the dimension tables. So our goal, use Power Query as we're importing all of these tables to transform them into star schema and then dump it into the data model. Now, I happen to have the tables here in Excel. If we go look at the Power Pivot data model over here in diagram view, that's our starting point. Now, for this video, I happen to have the data model here in Excel, but you easily could have this in an SQL database, in text files, online, wherever your starting point is, it's easy in Power Query to connect. So for us, we're going to connect to this Excel data model. Now, before we jump over to Power BI Desktop and import this, let's just think about what we have to do. We want to bring two numbers, shipping cost and invoice discount, from the invoice level over to the line level. So we'll have to allocate those. We'll first calculate a percentage invoice discount rate, and then use that to allocate the discount down to each line. Then we'll figure out how to allocate shipping cost based on weight, and then use that to allocate shipping down to each line. Then we're going to have to make sure and pull sales rep ID and date over from this side to the line side, so that then we can connect on this many side over to the two dimension tables over here. So it'll be a two-step process. Allocate the two numbers, then bring the many date and sales rep IDs over and connect these two dimension tables. Then we'll have everything we want. All of the numbers at the correct line level or granularity, and our dimension tables surrounded in a star schema. Now, I'm going to close this. Now, I opened up a blank Power BI Desktop model. We can see up here it's not named. For those of you that have not used Power BI Desktop, it is a free download. Just download it. Now, I want to save this, so I'm going to hit the F12 key to open up Save As. I'm going to save it to the desktop. Call it something like that. That'll be the final name if you want to download this final file. Now, over here in Power BI Desktop, where's Power Query? It's the home, external data. This Get Data button, this is actually over in Excel, Data ribbon tab, Get and Transform. You can connect to whatever data source you want before you do all these Power Query steps to transform. We're going to connect to Excel. So I click that. I find the file. I have it on the desktop. The file, you can download this. The link is below the video. Double click. Navigator opens up. Now, this is looking at a data model, so we see that little line above each table. These are the tables in the data model. Those are Excel sheets. I'm going to select each one. And we do not want to click Load. We want to click Edit because we want to transform it before it gets dumped into the data model. So I click Edit. Here's our 5 tables. Now we're going to start at the F line item invoice detail table. And actually, most of the steps we see in this video, we actually have seen the last few videos. But we're going to have some extra steps to make sure we end up in that star schema. All right, the very first thing we need to do is we want to calculate line item sales. So I'm going to click on quantity, hold Control, click on unit price, up to add column, over to from number, standard, and I'm going to multiply. I can see the Table.AddColumns. It's important to realize the Table.AddColumn function is Power Query M code. That's a Power Query function, not a DAX function. There's 4 arguments here. I want to edit the second one, so I double-click multiplication, and this will be called sales. Now, in the last few videos, I called this line sales because we wanted to distinguish between invoice and line sales because we had lots of steps. But this is going to be part of our final data dump. And I don't want it to say line sales. I just want it to say sales. And there it is. It calculated the line sales. Now we need to look up weight over in the product table. We go up to Home, over to Merge, Merge Queries. Here's the product. This is the many side. We're going to select D product. This is the one side. We're going to do a left outer join to bring in all of the proper weights for each line. Click OK. We want to expand because the only thing we want, uncheck that, uncheck everything, is weight. Click OK. Now that we have weight, we're going to click on that. Hold Control, click on quantity. Back up to Add Columns. And we'll use multiply. Double click, and we're going to call this line weight. And enter. Now our next step is we need to add each line sale and line weight. That means for each invoice, we're going to have to add. So for 125477, we're going to have to add sales and line weight. Now, once we have the total sales for an invoice and total weight for an invoice, we can use those numbers as the denominator to create an allocation rate to allocate the shipping and discount. That means we're going to have to come over to the invoice number column and use group by to make an aggregation on line sales and line weight. And guess what? We're going to need the line sales and the line weight and the product column later in our query. So we're also, when we group by, going to group the actual rows or records. So we'll have 3 group bys. Aggregate sum, and please take all of the records and save them for later calculations. So I come over to invoice number, right-click, group by, advanced, down to new column. And the first column name, invoice sales. We'll sum, and we'll add up the sales, which is the line sales. Add aggregation. This will be called invoice weight, sum. We want line weight. And now add aggregation, and this will be something like invoice records, and we're going to take all the rows. Click OK. For each invoice, we now have exactly what we want. Invoice sales, weight, and if I click off to the side, not on the yellow table, there's the records saved up where I can expand this column later in the query and use these columns. Now, this table is currently sitting at the header or invoice level. We're saving these up later because later we're going to have to go back to, for the final fact table, back to the line level. But now we need to join this header or invoice level table to the header table because we need to pull the 2 numbers at the header or invoice level and the date and sales rep ID on the many side so we can connect later to sales rep and date. So I go up to Home, over to Merge, Merge. Here's our invoice number that's going to connect to our header table invoice number. This is in essence a one-to-one. It's going to pull one record for each one record. Left outer join is fine. Click OK. Now we have two tables. This one we're saving up for later. But down here we can see date, sales rep, shipping cost, and invoice. So I click to expand, uncheck invoice number. We only need date, sales rep, and these two numbers. Click OK. Date and sales rep ID. These are the foreign keys or the many side. We'll use those later to connect to our dimension tables. Now, look at this. We have, if we click on invoice discount, that's going to be used in the numerator. I hold Control, click as the second click on invoice sales. I want to calculate invoice percentage discount, add column, standard, and we're going to divide. Because we clicked on invoice discount first, it's the numerator. Double click in the second argument of Table.AddColumn, or we're going to call this invoice percent discount, and enter. Now, if we scroll over here, that percentage can be used. That's how many pennies for every $1 of sales was given as a discount. So we can use that later when we expand back to the line level. And we'll use that on each line. The weight, however, if I click over on invoice records, notice if we're going to allocate this shipping cost, so 98.7 for this invoice on this row, if we're going to allocate that, we're going to use 743 in the denominator, and then each one of the weights, a different weight for each line in the numerator. So we'll have a different percentage for each line, and the total percentages will add up to, of course, 100%. And that will be what we use to allocate shipping cost. All right, so we're ready to expand. We're going to click the expand, uncheck everything. We definitely need line weight, sales, and we're going to need product. That'll be our foreign key on the many side that'll connect us to the product dimension table. Now we have to choose. We might want quantity if we're going to analyze that. And by the way, this unit price, sometimes unit price is stored as a fact, which it is here, because it changes so often. If it didn't change a lot, then we'd store it over in the product table. Now, if you're going to analyze this like the max or min or something like that, you might want to bring that in. We're not going to bring this one in. And we're not going to bring weight either, because we don't need that at all. Now I click OK. And if we scroll over, we can see there we're back to the line item level. Now, product we'll actually use as a foreign key to connect to the product dimension table. Quantity and sales will be in our final fact table. We might want to analyze quantity. We're definitely going to use sales in a calculation in just a moment, and we'll use it as a final column. Weight will only be used in a calculation before we get to the final fact table. Now, I want to change the data types here. So I'm going to click ABC icon for data type. This is going to be text. Notice it added a line here. We'll do the same thing for quantity. This is whole number. Sales, this will be fixed decimal or currency. Notice they all got consolidated into one step. We can see up here in the table.transform column types, product, quantity, and sales with the correct data type. Now, one advantage of doing this step right here is sales, we're actually going to use it in a subsequent multiplication calculation. And because this is currency, Table.AddColumn will correctly apply currency when we calculate discount. So yes, the next two steps, we need to allocate shipping and invoice discount. All right, let's do invoice discount. That simply is invoice percentage discount. Hold Control over to sales, add column, standard, drop down, multiply. We can see Table.AddColumns. It got currency at the end. We definitely want to double click, and this will be a final column called discount, and enter. If I scroll over, there we have allocated 1, 2, 3 lines in the line item table to split up that 144. Now we need to add a custom column to allocate our shipping costs. So we're going to go up to Add Columns, Custom Columns. We'll call this Shipping. And our formula. Actually, I forgot to round. We'll go back and round. Here we're going to round. So we're using number.round, open parentheses, in our calculation. First is the allocation rate. So I take line weight, double click, there it is. That's the numerator divided by invoice weight. That's the denominator. That will give us the proper percentage for each line. And we'll multiply it by shipping cost, which of course got properly repeated 3 times when we expanded the records for each invoice. Now, comma 2, because we want to round to the penny, close parentheses. Now, when I click OK, we can look up in the formula bar. There's Table.AddColumn. There's the previous step that this line acted on, the name. There's each calculation for each row, but it left the type out. So at the very end, I'm going to just type it in, comma. And I noticed from the last step, we should have looked at it, but when we changed the type, for currency, it's currency.type. Now, hopefully, I spelled it right and got the big C and the big T. When I hit Enter, there we are, rounded with the correct data type. Now, let's come back to insert multiplication right here, which is really just the discount. I forgot I wanted to round, so I'm going to edit Table.AddColumns after the each. Number.round, open parentheses, comma 2, close parentheses, and enter. One difference between doing this over here in Power Query is that round function actually does banker's rounding or halfway even rounding, which is more accurate over large columns of numbers than is the round function inside of Excel and DAX. So if we did the rounding over in DAX and compared it to this column here in Power Query, we'd be off by a few pennies, maybe even up to $1. All right, we click right at the bottom. We can see we have 1, 2, our allocated shipping and discount for each line. Now, we want to only have some of these columns in the final fact table. Now, invoice number, you may or may not want that. I'm going to leave it. Invoice sales, we definitely don't want. We don't want invoice weight. Product, I do, so I'm holding Control, clicking on Product. Quantity, sales, don't want line. Date, sales rep ID, still holding Control. Still holding Control. I don't want any of these, but I do want discount and shipping. Any one of these columns, right-click, remove other columns, click. And there is our final line item fact table. We went from 2 fact tables down to a single table and allocated discount and shipping and calculated the sales. Now, I don't need, when I load this into the data model, I don't want this invoice header to be loaded. So I'm going to come to the left, right-click, and I'm going to uncheck Enable Load. That way, that little italic right there means that was just used as part of this Power Query transformation. Now, here's the moment of truth. We can come up and close and apply. We can see the 4 tables are being loaded. And if we go over to Relationships View, there is our almost correct model. There's our 1 fact table. There's sales rep. There's product. Those ones were picked up correctly, product and sales rep. But this one, we're going to drag date over to date. And there we have 1, 2, 3 dimension tables. And we might have more also, and our 1 fact table. Now I want to go and add some measures before we create a visualization. Selecting line item table, modeling, new measure. Up in the formula bar, total sales equals sum. And we're going to do the F, down arrow to sales, tab, close parentheses, and enter. Modeling, we're going to add and attach some number formatting. So whenever we use this measure, number formatting will be applied. We can see over here in our list of items in this table, that icon, that's a little calculator, means measure. Those sigmas are different than Power Pivot. It does not mean a measure. It just means that column has numbers in it. Now, we're not going to use quantity in our report. If you wanted to add it, we'd add another sum here. But we definitely are going to add discount and our shipping. So I come up to modeling, new measure. So I total discount sum, and we're going to add up There it is, our discount, close parentheses, enter. Add some number formatting. A new measure, total shipping equals sum, F, and then down arrow to shipping, tab, close parentheses, and enter. Add some number formatting. Now, I'd actually like to compare discount and shipping to sales. So we're going to add two more measures, which basically divide each of those items against sales. So something like percentage discount on sales, and I'm going to use the divide function. In the numerator, now we've created measures for our aggregation. So I type a square bracket. So total discount, I see it there, so tab, comma, denominator, square bracket, total sales, tab, close parentheses, and enter. New measure, something like percent shipping on sales, divide, square bracket, and I'm going to get total shipping as a measure, comma, square bracket, and there's total sales, tab, close parentheses, and enter. Now, I definitely want number formatting for both of these, so I'm going to click the percentage. And over here in Power BI Desktop, it'll add 2 decimals by default. Click over on percentage discount, add the same percentage number formatting. Now I'm going to come over to line item sales and right-click date and point to hide in report view. I do not want to use that field. Same with discount, hide in report view. For product 2, quantity, sales, sales rep ID. I wish I knew how to hide all of these except for the measures. Right-click hide in report view. Someone please post a comment below about how to highlight all of those and just right-click or where it is up in the ribbons or wherever, because doing it one at a time is a hassle. Now we have built our model. If we go over here, Star Schema. Now we can use these measures and any one of these dimension tables, conditions, criteria as filters will work on our measures. Now we go over to report view, and we want to make a simple visualization. Now here's our tables. We can expand and notice that we only see our measures in our line item fact table. And then here are each one of the dimension tables. Now we're going to select table, and I'm going to pull a condition or criteria from product. Selecting product, we see a unique list there. Now I'm going to select with a checkbox total sales, total shipping, percent shipping, total discount, and percent discount. We can come over and pull the edge. Here's our simple visualization. We're going to come up, and there's the paintbrush for painting the wall of your house or adding formatting to our visualization. Table style, I'm going to click the drop down and select flashy rows. The grid, we're going to increase the font maybe to 12. Pull down the edge here. Some more formatting perhaps. You can format it however you'd like. Column headers. Background color, I'm going to pick some dark green and then font white. All right, now we want to surround it with some slicers. So off to the side, I click on the white, and I click on the slicer. Let's go to the date. All I want is year. I do not want that slider. Come over to the paintbrush. Slider off. Click and drag. Now you would think that over here somewhere would be the ability to turn this into a list. But sometimes you have to hunt around, especially us Excel people. If you click the drop down, oh, there are some options, and list is the one I want. That looks like a little slicer. I'm going to drag year over here. Click in the white. Slicer. From product, I want to see manufacturer. And you could format these however you'd like. And one more slicer. Down to the sales rep. Sales rep. Check. This is a big list. So I'm going to drag it over here. Click and drag. And now here are all the measures from our one fact table. I can select the year. Instantly that works. Select the particular manufacturer and some employees. If I hold Control, those are the employees on the particular team I want to see. 2018-19 gel boomerangs. And our one fact table with all of our measures can be sliced and diced with any of the dimension tables. All right, so in this video, we saw how to go from 2 fact tables into the star schema. We learned all about, and we can actually access and edit the Power Query transformation at any time, clicking Edit Queries. Over here, we did all of these steps, transforming from 2 fact tables and dimension tables into our star schema. Then we created some measures and built a simple visualization. All right, that was a lot of fun with going from 2 fact tables into star schema using Power Query inside of Power BI Desktop. And be sure if you like that video to click that thumbs up, leave a comment, and sub, because there's always lots more videos to come from Excel is Fun. All right, we'll see you next video.